Welcome back to the Rose Bros podcast. This episode, we are joined by Dan Zembal, president of PolyAg Recycling, for another installment of the Rundle Eco-Capitalism Series, where the idea is to explore companies that are giving back to the environment and also making a profit. In a nutshell, PolyAg Recycling collects used grain bags from farmers and then processes them through a cycle of shredding, washing, and melting to create individual plastic pellets. These pellets are then sold to other companies who require them for material to make new products such as the synthetic wood used to build new decks. Companies are now using PolyAg's recycled pellets to make brand new grain bags in an example of full circle recycling. We sat down for a smooth cup of Rose Bros coffee and discussed how PolyAg works, full circle recycling, reusing waste products, skin in the game, good books, and a lot more. Enjoy! Also, this week's podcast is brought to you by A1 Media. Looking to grow your business online? A1 can help grow your business through its bundled media packages, including a website, newsletter, social media accounts, e-commerce storefront, or podcast. Let A1 tell your entrepreneurial story and reach millions of new customers. Check out a1dev.ca today for more details on how you can grow your business. Also, looking to learn more about everything from personal health and exercise routines to investing and local news? The Rose Bros newsletter is sent twice a month and is packed with interesting articles, new podcast episodes, book recommendations, pictures, quotes, and tweets. Check out rosebros.ca today and learn more. You won't regret it. All right, well, we're recording now.
Okay, there you go.
Thanks, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
For anyone listening, this is Dan Zembal, the president and owner of PolyAg Recycling. What is PolyAg Recycling?
PolyAg Recycling, there's actually three owners, Brad, Damien, and myself. We take grain bags, agricultural plastics. We're starting with grain bags, and we take the grain bags from Saskatchewan, Alberta, now Manitoba, and BC as well, so the western provinces. And we take those, we shred the material. It comes in on trucks. We shred that material. We then wash that material. We screen it, wash it, melt it, extrude it, and turn it into pellets.
And sell the pellets.
So we've developed the process of on the front end and the machinery and set up a plant in Bashaw, Alberta. Yeah, and then we take those pellets and sell them worldwide.
And the grain bags are from an agricultural setting.
Correct.
Why grain bags?
Grain bags, it's a consistent material. So there's, I believe there's about 8 manufacturers worldwide of the grain bags, and it's all LDPE with some titanium oxide and some carbon black and some possible antioxidants and some UV protection. But the formula is pretty much the same. So it's a consistent product. So we're able to produce a very consistent and high quality product at the end, which is near virgin quality product. So that's kind of what we targeted, as opposed to, I know some other operations have tried and they'll just throw everything into a big vat or a bin, mix it all in and try to extrude it. But you end up downgrading the quality of the product. So we targeted, we put in double wash lines. We put in a screening line. We put in double extruders just to get as high of a quality recycled pellet product as we could.
In layman's terms, you collect the grain bags from an agricultural setting, melt them down, and then sell it in pellet form to somebody else.
Correct.
That's the real simple explanation.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And a variety of end uses. We started off initially shipping a lot of material because that's where the market was internationally, offshore. So some went to China, Malaysia, Taiwan, and other overseas destinations. And then that was kind of how we got the commodity flowing. And then we developed the North American market. So we haven't sold now or overseas for about a year. So we started the first year, we sold a lot of it just offshore as a commodity. Second year, we developed the North American market. And I would have said that 70-80% of it went to the States for a variety of products. And now I would say that 70% of it stays right here in Canada. Just recently, I think I can announce it, that we've found a very local market within an hour and a half of our production facility. So, and that is turning grain bags back into grain bags. So initially, the pellets were anything from into a composite wood, got made into drainage tile, weeping tile-like thing, and then it was into other agricultural films, and then ultimately grain bags to grain bags. In a recycling world, in my world, the ultimate is to recycle it back into the product that it first came from. That's the ultimate. Otherwise, you're downcycling it a little, and that's okay. That's a good, but that's the ultimate that you're looking for is full circle recycling.
Would the pellets be cheaper than buying it virgin plastic or the same price?
It is. It's slightly less than, and they do, because it degrades each time you extrude it and you melt it down. So they'll have to add, typically they'll add an antioxidant, they'll add some more UV, they might have to add color. We produce one color, one grade, one type. It has a certain melt index, and we can't and don't change that. So, whereas the virgin product will be produced from a very pure form. And so they'll typically blend our product in at anywhere from 15 to 50%. We'll sell our product at roughly, anywhere from 50 to 75% of what it will be, what it costs them virgin.
And obviously there's a market for it.
We pre-sell now about 2 months in advance. So we're sold out for, the next couple of months. And that's been pretty consistent. We have buyers right now. It took a while to develop that market, but we have them kind of lined up, and you can only have 2 loads this month, or you can only have 1 load because we're pretty much done. So now that's why we're starting to push that further into the future. And we've also started to develop supply agreements with some of the major buyers.
The critic might say a business like this is hard to make profitable, but you guys are profitable. We are. And one of the things that we've found is that, we've secured our front end supply of grain bags, if you will. We've entered into supply agreements on the front end, and then we've entered into supply agreements on the back end as well. And that's helped stabilize. So it's all about stabilizing. Yes, we can get the products on a consistent basis at a consistent price on the front end. Then we have our process, and we've tweaked that, but for the most part, it's basically the same as when we started, with some definitely improvements. And then the back end is these supply agreements and these long-term purchase orders. So we set it up in that way, and we're starting to we've hit a nice sweet spot. 6, 7, 8 figures revenue.
We're well over the $1 million. So it's probably easier to talk in terms of volumes. So we're now doing, this year we'll probably hit around 4 to 5 million pounds of recycled product. Again, we're on the planning stages with the supply chain. It's tougher to get equipment and stuff, but we're into looking at where's our next expansion, and we're already ready to expand. So we're starting to plan for late summer, early fall. We'll expand our operations to not quite double our capacity out. And we started to look at other products as well. So we started to look at pond liner. We started to look at super sacks or tote bags, and just other materials. As we develop and people, understand what we're doing, they start to come to us. There could be HDPE pipe, oil field. So we're not really restricted to agricultural film. That's kind of where we started. That's our beginning. But now, again, it'll be a consistent type of material that's not mixed. So I don't think we'll ever get into mixed residential plastics, because that's a bit of a dog's breakfast as far as they throw all these different types. They all have different melt indexes. They all have different, or melt temperatures. They all have different qualities. And at the end, it's difficult to keep them clean enough to produce a good high quality pellet product.
Why agricultural grain bags and recycling, did you spot a market opportunity, or were you just passionate about it?
I've been recycling for a long time, and when the Alberta government introduced a pilot program to start collecting grain bags and other materials, other agricultural plastics, I saw that prior to my involvement, that material was shipped in a raw form in bales to either to China and then also down to Arkansas. And I looked at that and felt that China had started to restrict what you could ship them and how and that. And then Arkansas was a good market and a good process. I went and talked to them and looked at what they were doing and then felt that we could be competitive because we didn't have to ship it that far. So rather than shipping it across the continent, we're able to do it locally. And local has its advantages because it's, less of a carbon footprint, but also less costs. So rather, shipping it all over Saskatchewan and Alberta to a centralized location in Bashaw, that's why we chose Bashaw. It's quite centralized. It's the grain belt of kind of Alberta, or one of the two major grain belts in Alberta, and it's reasonably close to Saskatchewan. So we get about half of our material from Saskatchewan, half from Alberta. And within Alberta, the majority of that material is within 3 hours. So, we do get some from Grand Prairie and the Peace River area, but the majority. So we wanted to, from an environmental and a sustainability prospect, we wanted to be, reduce the carbon footprint and not be hauling it a long ways. So it just made a lot of sense. And then it's from an economic point of view, it's a little less expensive, for warehouse, for process, for a plant, to set up a plant in Bashaw. Good labor force area. We were able to hire some really good people. Also, it's just more economical out there. You can get your real estate a little cheaper. Mm-hmm. So it made sense from a number of perspectives.
And you guys, it's a business. You're also making money.
We're also making money, yes. First year, and my strategy, and it has been, and it's worked fairly well for me, is first year you lose money because you've got setup costs and you're getting everything rolling. Mm-hmm. Second year you break even, and third year if you can make money, and then thereafter that's kind of the formula that I've used in the past. I've done this a number of times, and it's working.
How many pounds of plastic do you think you've prevented from going to the landfill in total?
We'd be over 6 million pounds, I would say now. So in perspective, it's 2 big semi-truckloads, 2.5, 3 even, in that range per week of material that would have gone originally to the landfill.
Or burned in China.
Well, I wouldn't say burned in China. Or they would, if you're incurring the cost to ship it to China, it is being recycled. But how cost effective and how good that is from a carbon footprint. You're shipping stuff across the world to get melted down, turned into something, and shipping it back. Whereas we can ship it from Bashaw to Edmonton is an hour and a half, and so we can get the grain bags, collect them for the most part within a 3 hour radius, and then ship our product within an hour and a half radius. That's pretty amazing, actually, for a recycler.
Would you say PolyAg is an example of eco-capitalism?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we're doing this to save the planet, and from an environmentally sustainable perspective, that's a good thing. But if you don't make money doing it, you're not going to last. So what have you achieved? So yes, you have to make money. And, we do it, and we do it for a variety of reasons. We do it because we make money. We do it because it's a social good thing to do, and environmentally as well. That's something that all three, Damien, Brad, and we've all kind of had businesses that we felt were good that met all three of those criteria.
Similar to Rundle Eco Services. Shout out to Mike Rutherford.
Yes.
You guys a similar line of work?
Yeah, so I talked to Mike quite a bit, and what we've done with him is we've looked at grain bags again as starting it, and then we looked around at what other materials, and Mike's been involved with the pond liner, and he's looking at other things with us as well. So we've now collected about 1 million pounds of pond liner, and that's kind of our next go. We've proven, we've run our tests, and we've proven that our facility will handle and recycle that pond liner with a very similar. Again, it's only a few manufacturers make it, so it's a consistent product. Most of that material is collected from Alberta, some out of BC as well, and there'll be a small amount out of Saskatchewan. But again, local, probably within a 5-hour radius sort of thing. And the pellets will be again used very close. So we're looking at selling the pellets in a Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta market. We've developed that, and so that's our next material we're looking at with Mike. And then Mike is also, he's good at finding that material or those opportunities, and then some turn into something and some don't. We're exploring HDPE pipe, so from the oil field. So that's kind of more his background, but we have found some opportunity, and we're testing that to see if it's something that we can recycle as our third or fourth product sort of thing. So we're able to take those materials, again, a single material, not a bunch of mix, and fairly consistent whether it's produced by manufacturer A or B or C. Small little, they all have their little recipes, but the basic product is similar, and it produces a high quality, desirable pellet as well.
All falling under eco-capitalism, making money.
All falling under eco-capitalism.
Helping the planet a little bit.
Yep.
In terms of square footage on your hard assets, what kind of facilities has PolyAg had to build?
We're on about 3.5 acres, and we've got buildings and to the, in that 12,000 square foot range.
So it's been quite the investment.
It is. Yes, and the equipment itself is quite the investment. A lot of running, moving parts. I think 36 motors and gearboxes, and a fair big electrical demand, which is a little disappointing, but that's what we have to work with.
I think that's the cool thing about the business is you guys have skin in the game in terms of investment in hard assets.
Oh yeah. We did not seek out. Well, we looked at them briefly, but we looked at some of the grants and the subsidies and all of that, and nothing really applied or we felt was worth the effort to go through. So we looked at some of that, and there may be some opportunities for some R&D down the road as we're testing other products, and we will continue to look at that. But it is all privately funded by the three of us. We owe the banks a little bit, of course, and AFSC, a shout out there, have been very proactive in working with us, and they're working with us on our expansion as well. So, yeah, it's a lot of skin in the game.
Yeah. You're also expanding into wood products?
Not wood, plastic lumber. Okay. Yeah. So what we found is that one of the things, again, from looking at all three key factors, is we found that we were still disposing of between 10 and 15% of our product was going to landfill after our process. And that was mostly the screenings. We screen out the fines, so there's a bit of grit, a bit of gravel, a little bit of dirt, and some grain, that's residual grain that's in the grain bags. So we found all of that, and then our process also produces some fines, which is just finely shredded plastic, which our system is not designed to handle. So we were throwing that out, and we saw that as, okay, that didn't really meet what we wanted to do. So I looked at what else could be done with that. And again, it's a consistent product with some contaminants, if you will, from a plastic perspective. But we looked at what we could do with that, and we can't turn it into pellets because it's not a pure, clean product. But we looked at lumber, and in fact, some of the additives in lumber, it enhanced the lumber. Some of the fines, the grit and that, a little harder on your equipment, but we are able to turn it into lumber. So we are currently commissioning, I set up another plant, a separate little entity that takes that waste from PolyAg and makes it into poly lumber. And so we can make 2x6s, 2x4s. We make a planter board that has some shiplap ends that you can construct planters with. And we found some just different markets for that lumber, very specific, very unique lumber in that it's fairly flexible, but it's one of those products that it's plastic. It'll, almost last forever sort of thing. So any application that has weather or water, for example, it will float like wood, but it'll last. So anything that's in a marshy, swampy environment, anything that's a marine environment, or planters outdoors, for example, anything that would deteriorate, any wood that would deteriorate. So we're able to take that. It's a much smaller enterprise, but again, it's meant to make money, to take a waste product that one company produces and turn it into something valuable. It's 3 kilometers away from PolyAg, so again, the carbon footprint and the transportation. And to date, most of the product will be sold very locally and at most probably within Alberta. So most of that lumber will be sold. And I have set up pre-orders. And again, the whole supply, the stability of the supply of material coming in and the stability of the supply of end product, that's what working with a company called Alternative Plastics. And they will take that and do a lot of the marketing of that product at some of the smaller hardware stores and such, and local stores. So a very local, smaller enterprise. It's not something that footprint, I think we're in 2,000 or 3,000 square feet, and again, it takes a bit of power, but we've set that up, and we should be making. Well, we are making lumber now, but we should be making it on a consistent basis next week. So we just launched that this week with the testing and stuff.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's kind of fun. It keeps you busy.
Before you guys started this business, how much grain bag material do you think is in the landfill right now, and how long does that take to break down? Like millions of pounds?
It won't break down in a landfill. It'll stay there forever. There's not enough oxygen to ever break it down, so it would be in the landfill forever. Fortunately, not a lot, because grain bags are, they've only been used for, I don't know exactly, but somewhere between 10 and 12 years. They started being, seeing use, and then farmers were able to, quickly get their crops off and dump it in the field, if you will, in a grain bag, as opposed to hauling it to the homestead and a lot of trucking and such. And then it would hold a huge capacity. So they've only really become popular use, and there's an increasing use. Rather than building granaries and putting up huge infrastructure, they can put it in a field and have quick access to offloading and quick access to filling up the trucks at a later date. So there wasn't a lot, but they were starting to become a problem because farmers were either trying to bury them. There was some burning that went on initially, which wasn't good for the environment. And then when they started showing up at landfills hated them because they were large, they were unwieldy. These things are anywhere from 250 to 500 feet long, from 9 to 12 feet in diameter. So they were great big, cumbersome things that wrapped around wheels, and they really weren't good to put in a landfill from that perspective, from an operations perspective. Plus, they never broke down. And they do have some good, they are a good quality product. Film is a higher quality plastic product. As a rule, so that again was something that that we looked at.
What's been the biggest challenge for PolyAg thus far?
COVID sure didn't help. The supply chain now was a bit of a challenge. Initially, when we first started producing any quantities, was right when COVID hit. And the commodity price was really in the toilet, and we struggled with that. We were able to move that product, again, like I said earlier, offshore, but it was almost at a loss price. And so we kind of stuck with it, which was very difficult. So I would say that, COVID and the resulting market was probably a bad time to start a business in hindsight, but It also made us a lot stronger. We became a lot more efficient in how we handled things, and we just had to work a lot smarter in the beginning. We're in a much better place now, but again, startup is always a challenge. Startup during COVID is a challenge, and then startup with now the challenge is some of the supply chain stuff is starting to get a little tricky. The cost of trucking is higher now, so moving the material both in and out. So those things have been a bit of a challenge.
Reduced activity in, I guess, industry in general, so there wasn't the demand for the pellets?
Yeah, in the beginning, because no one knew what was really happening. Now the price has actually stabilized, and because of some of the supply chain and some of the challenges getting some of the product, we're doing quite well on our commodity pricing on the price of pellets. It's basically gone to double what we originally started at. So, and we see a nice, healthy, moving into the future. It will always fluctuate a little. It is just it's commodity, but we've established some longer term relationships with companies that want to add a recycled content into their product, both from a marketing perspective and environmental, a sustainability perspective. So once we were able to take it from just it's a cheaper source of plastic pellets, to it's a cheaper source of plastic pellets and it's a recycled product and we're doing the right thing.
Exactly.
We're starting to get some of the players that have made commitments to recycle a lot more. I mean, plastic took a bad rap for a period of time and still is. So some of these companies are looking at that and saying, okay, we should get on board with the recycling. And so they're looking at it and saying, here's an opportunity to add some content.
Higher oil prices is good for you too.
Higher oil prices always help. Yes, when the price of oil is very low, the virgin product made by some of the big boys like Dow and Nova, their price comes down, and it affects us. It did affect us more when it was strictly a commodity. Now that we're kind of selling it as the recycling perspective, we've protected ourselves a little bit from that commodity fluctuation. But definitely when, the virgin material was quite a bit more, that does pull our price up. Now that our price is up, we're able to stabilize it with just the recycled market now, or the demand for that recycled. They call it PCR, post-consumer resin.
What's the biggest opportunity for PolyAg going forward?
Expansion, more materials. I think we'll look at 2 or 3. We have been looking at 2 or 3 products. The first one is always the one that costs you the most money. After you've done it a few times, you hopefully have learned enough that you see some of the pitfalls and you can avoid them. And some of the trial and error, that worked, that didn't. Our first shredder didn't work. So that was a 10-week delay and a fairly financial one. The second shredder works well. Now we know what shredder works on what material. And the same thing with some of our production line. I've got a big history in recycling, but not in necessarily plant operation. So our group, when we started playing with the plant operation, there's a lot of moving parts. So that's always a challenge.
It seems like there is a ton of opportunity for even household consumables. Have you guys ever thought about that market?
The household, and I call it the residential market, but the household market is there's just so many variations on the plastic.
I see.
So that putting in a plastic Go cup with a grocery bag, with the shrink wrap stuff, with the clamshell stuff, all of that, they all have different. It's like trying to throw, I look at it as people understand metal. You throw in iron with tin, with stainless steel, with aluminum, with copper, with gold, with whatever it is that you want, all the different metals, you throw it in, chances are you've degraded the quality of all of those. And at the end of the day, you might have rebar as a lowest common. So you recycle it down to the lowest common denominator. So, and I find that the whole throw everything into a bin and then try to sort it out later is almost impossible to get a clean product, a clean, consistent product. There is some technology, some sorting technology that's pretty good. But for the most part, we will stick to a single material. And there's different pockets of that, but most of it is more of a industrial commercial as opposed to a residential household.
I see.
Poly lumber, we may be able to use some of those products, and we've looked at that. Mm-hmm. We've looked at, materials that we can add down the road to enhance our lumber product. For example, for a deck board, you might want to make it lighter so it doesn't burn your feet when you're walking on it, because a dark charcoal gray would be a little hot for a deck. So you may want to find an additive plastic product. Again, more of a consistent one, like a paint pail or some other market like that. Plus, you may want to look at something that stiffens up the boards. Mm-hmm. So you may look at an HDPE or another type of plastic that, again, enhances the end product. So we will be looking for those materials that we can add in. And our phase 2 on the poly lumber is to look at shredding, actually bringing in a shredder. Well, we have a shredder. We bought a shredder and a granulator so that we can add those products in at a later point. That's kind of a phase 2, 6 months, 8 months down the road.
Awesome. That was a great conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
What are you reading these days? I always ask people at the end what they're reading.
Pillars of the Earth. I'm actually rereading that one for I think I may have read it twice before.
Fiction?
Yeah,
Okay.
I quite like some of the fiction. I'd still read some nonfiction and, some self-help stuff or some business stuff that kind of, here's a better way to do things. But
Pillars of the Earth.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a great book. If you haven't, that's always a good one. And he's got 2 or 3 different series. I think I've read most of that particular author's, and I'm sorry I just lost the name of it. But he's It's kind of medieval. Hardships, and it's not about knights and slashing and people in shining armors or anything, but it's more going through that phase in time where, there's a lot of hardships and kind of the different class structures and how people move through that. But I find it, when I read now, I try to read for escapism or, I get enough business stuff, going on in my mind that way. I'll lose myself every once in a while for a weekend in a good book.
Maybe a corner of history people don't look into as much.
Yeah. So,
awesome.
And I live out now in White Sands, and we've got a little take it or leave it, and I'll return 2 or 3 books, and then I'll go back and pick up 2 or 3 books, and it's a great little, almost a book exchange sort of thing for me. That's what I use it for. So I'll get into some good books for sure.
I just finished Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson.
Snow Crash.
It's all about the metaverse.
Yeah, okay. That's an unusual name for the metaverse.
Yeah. Anyways, that's a side story.
Yeah, no.
On the sci-fi fiction note.
Okay.
Awesome.
And how about you?
Rose Bros is chugging along.
What's your expansion for that? Are you... You've done the online thing. You've done the coffee. You've done the gift packs for the Christmas, and
yep.
I really enjoyed those, by the way, as did the people I sent them to.
Mainly online, Amazon.ca, Amazon.com. So you can buy it from Alaska to Florida now. So.
And are you selling it locally at any of the local coffee shops? And can you go in and ask for that, or do they carry a lot of it, or are you mostly stuck to the online stuff?
Mostly online. We maybe a dozen retail spots between BC and Saskatchewan, Alberta. Maybe a little more now, 20. But our niche has been online for sure.
Yeah.
So
the biggest market. So always still a specialty market, though, a higher end specialty market, producing good quality product.
Yes.
Yeah. Good
if anyone is listening, check out Rose Bros Coffee.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Plug my own
well, and
product.
thanks for some. We were out, so
yeah.
like I said, we got a bunch for Christmas, and I was telling my wife on the way up that I hope Trevor brings us some, because we're pretty much out. And in fact, I think I bought, I don't know, half a dozen or better gift packs for Christmas, and we gave them all out. And then we looked and we thought, no, we really didn't. That's perfect. We got a few. But that was great.
Well, why don't we wrap it up there?
Yep, I'm good with that.
That was a great conversation. Hey, thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. If you liked what you heard, check out roadsbros.ca where we will have upcoming shows. Until next time, happy coffee.